We are live. We are live.
Awesome.
Let's see. Hmm. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
Alrighty. Good evening. I am
Good
Belle
evening.
Morgan. This is Conversations with Belle. And this is a series that discusses life issues and champions personal accountability and growth. Today, I am so excited to be joined by certified life coach and minister D.L. Williams. DL is the executive director of the Rape Crisis Center in Savannah, Georgia. She's also the owner of DL Williams Serves, where she connects with people through ministry, motivational speaking, and spiritual life coaching. She is a survivor of childhood molestation, adult rape, and domestic violence, and she is on a mission to help others discover the beauty within their flaws. Welcome, DL.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Belle. I appreciate you.
Thank you for agreeing to come on. So, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and because of my own personal experiences, I have always wanted to do more to bring awareness to the cause. The statistics are startling. And did you know that in the United States, more than 10 million adults, that's men and women, experience domestic violence annually? What is domestic violence? You know, it's also called intimate partner violence. And according to the United States Department of Justice, the definition is a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain control over another intimate partner. When we mention domestic violence, most people's default is physical abuse, but there are many types of domestic violence. There is physical, of course, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, emotional and or psychological abuse, economic abuse, control, isolation, and stalking. Before we get into the meat of our discussion, I just wanted to say, and I'm sure you would agree with me, DL, that if you're in a physically violent situation, you have to have a safe plan in place before
Hmm.
you exit.
True.
75% of domestic violence related homicides occur upon separation, and there's a 75% increase of violence upon separation for at least 2 years. The
Yes.
concerns are real and must be addressed with a safe plan. Every week we're hearing stories about domestic violence abuse, murders. Just last week in Texas, there was a story about a young mother, a wife and mother, 28 years old, who was shot 10 times in front of her children because she asked for a divorce. So please, before you leave, lots of people will say, just leave, just leave, just leave. Please have a plan in place. Seek out a professional before you leave.
Yes.
Did you want to
Yes.
add anything to that?
Yes. It is to have a safety plan is very key to getting out safely and reaching out to the local resources because they can help you develop those safety plans to your local safe shelter or domestic violence center in your area for a safe exit. And they will help you get out safely.
Mhm.
It's very important.
So let's share stories. I'll start with you.
Um, for me, of course, it was my intimate partner. And being young, I was naive and I did not think that domestic violence was anything but physical. I felt it was strategic because in the beginning, it was a whirlwind romance.
Mhm.
Just adored me with candy, love, poetry. Just seemed
Mhm.
so perfect. As people say, too perfect. And
Mhm.
by the time we were living together, it was strategic because next thing I know, I was being isolated. I couldn't go out with my girlfriends, couldn't go nowhere with my family members. It was just me and that person, and they became my everything.
Mhm.
And one minute I was adored, the next minute I
Mhm.
wasn't good enough. I was
Mhm.
too big. I was not cleaning the house good. I was just not smart enough and I was grateful to have them. So by the time physical started, I didn't even realize, I felt like I was being groomed to prepare me for the physical violence. And
Mm,
I'm not knowing that I was already being abused. And like I said, it was strategic, because by the
yeah.
time the physical started, I was so low emotionally, and I felt my self-esteem was low. I felt I had nobody to turn to, because of the isolation. I didn't have
Mm,
no the money I needed, I thought, to get away. So when physical started, it was like, wow.
yeah.
Because as a young person, I thought the only type of abuse was physical. And so, and one of the things in my situation was I never was hit in my face. So all of
Mm,
my bruises were covered up.
yeah.
And this person was charismatic. They were
Mhm,
outgoing. They were loved by
mhm,
people. I would have women tell me they wish I had a companion like that. And I would be like, they don't know what they want. They don't know what they're wishing for.
yeah.
And I just was so low and did not feel I had any resources. So when the physical took place, I got to the point where I thought I deserved it. And
Mm,
not having my father in my life, not having nothing to measure for my experience and how I should be loved, I
yeah.
accepted that. I accepted that as my truth. So to me, it was, I think the worst part of it was not understanding what domestic violence was. And
Mm,
so that person prepared me for the physical aspect. And by the time I was in the physical violence part of it, I just didn't feel, I felt hopeless.
mm,
So that was that naive, not knowing, not understanding. And like you said earlier, Belle, when we talked, was if we help one person, especially
yeah.
understanding the many types of domestic violence there is, because me not knowing that the physical aspect, not knowing the isolation, not knowing the manipulation, the psychological, the financial
Mm,
violence, domestic violence, and how that different types of violence there is. I think if I had a little more knowledge, I may
mhm,
not have walked down that path. But
yeah.
at the time, I was not aware, and that was my experience. It just progressed to the physical.
Yeah. And what was the turning point for you? When did you decide this is it?
Um, I felt like I was so low, and I felt like if nobody else wanted me, because that's what they kept telling me.
Mhm,
I felt like I was in a bipolar relationship, because one minute
mhm,
they're super loving, and then they're abusive,
mhm,
then they're super loving, and you're like, oh. And in the beginning of that, after so many cycles of it, I was thinking that, okay, if I do everything perfect, they won't do that to me again.
yeah.
If I stop doing this, if I wear my hair, if I do things this way, they won't do it to me anymore.
Yeah.
And that didn't stop it. So
Mhm.
I was like, well, you know what? Hey, I got to look for something else. This is crazy. This person they gonna kill me one, and I really felt they was killing my soul. But I felt
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
was being looked at, that one day it could go beyond that. And
Yeah.
for me, I started watching talk shows, and they talked about domestic violence. And
Mhm.
that was my eye-opening moment that, man, I was been abused. I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. So by the time I got to see that the domestic violence shows on the talk shows, it was a lot of talk shows out there. And I know people don't remember Sally Jesse Raphael, and it was
Mhm.
Oprah, but it was
Yeah.
other, and they all were talking about it.
Mhm.
And that's when it started clicking in me that I could find some help. And there's
Yeah.
somebody out there that would help me, because they were highlighting the domestic violence centers. So
Yeah.
that was my turning point, was television. And because I didn't have anybody close to me to really speak to me, and I didn't tell anybody what I was going through.
Yeah.
So that was my turning point, was seeing that information on television.
For me, I think that as I do my work, I think it for me started in childhood. So I grew up in an environment where I saw that. Um,
Hmm.
Physical violence, I always knew was a hard stop. Okay, I knew if you put your hands on me, that it's a wrap, right? I ended up with someone who became physically abusive to me. Never was beaten, but he would shove me, right?
Hmm.
His thing was shoving me, and one time he shoved me so hard, a couple times he shoved me so hard I fell to the ground. Um, the verbal abuse was something that I didn't realize to be as hurtful as it actually was.
Hmm.
And leading the verbal and the psychological and emotional abuse. And like I said, I was kind of groomed from childhood, to be quite honest, because I had become accustomed to um, emotionally detached men. Okay.
Yes.
So I found myself repeating a pattern, pattern after pattern. And each person I ended up with, they were emotionally detached as well. And so that would then progress into, I'm shaking my head when you were talking about you were trying to be perfect. You end up walking on eggshells.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm this
Yeah.
and if I'm that, and if I don't say this and if I don't do that, and then like the last person that I encountered something with like that with, he was so angry. Like he would go from 0 to 1,000 over the tiniest thing. And I had never ever experienced that. And to the point
Yeah.
where I was afraid of him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
in, in both of the cases that I'm thinking of right now, the turning point for me was one day I'm in the bathroom and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. So I'm looking in my eyes and I'm like, I didn't see me there. And
No.
so I decided, I've got to get out of this or else.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I wasn't in a situation where I feared physical violence if I left, but I certainly was fearful of what people would think and what people would
Yes.
say. And
Yes.
that's another reason, sometimes we stay in situations that we should not be in is because we're afraid of what other people are going to think. And then you get out and you realize others are going through the exact same thing.
Yes.
People critiquing
Yes.
you and judging you. They're in worse situations. So once I rid myself of that, what's it going to look like? What are people going to say? I was able to get out of it. And then the work starts because you have to heal.
Yes.
Bruises
Yes.
heal, bones heal. Thank God I never experienced that. But, the mental stuff I found was like
Oh yeah.
really hard for me to kind of process and let go of and say, okay, he said this, but that's not the truth. That's not true about me. That might be what he thought, but that's not what I think about myself. And so you start peeling back the layers. And I guess for me, it really started in like my childhood. And so I had become accustomed to that kind of language and that kind of treatment. And so it was comfortable for me to find myself in those situations. So by the grace of God, free from all of that,
Yes.
healing, doing the
Yes.
work, and it feels great. And I'm just trying to help women. I'm just trying to help women. When you look back on your experiences, what tips would you give? Well, no. Is there something you would have done differently? What would you have done differently? If you could go
I,
back, what would you do differently?
I think I would have not allowed my friends, the disconnection from my friends and family.
Mhm.
And like I tell people all the time, it was subtle. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about a girlfriend or somebody you constantly inviting them to something about the fifth or sixth time, maybe the 10th. You have one friend that just keep trying. Like, I'm gonna
Mhm.
try, I'm invited to lunch, I'm invited to
Mhm.
dinner. And
Mhm.
then they stop calling. They
Mhm.
stop inviting you. And in your
Mhm.
mind, you want them to invite you, but you know you're not going to be able to go.
Yeah.
He does not want you to have those connections. That person does not
Mhm.
want you to have that connection because they know that you just might tell them.
Mhm.
You might tell
Mhm.
them what's going on. You
Mhm.
might feel that connect that person, you could trust them to tell them something that intimate and private.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and if I could do anything differently, just knowing that I shouldn't feel ashamed. I
Yeah.
shouldn't feel embarrassed by it.
Mhm.
I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Other than making a mistake and not realizing the person I dealt with had issues and that they were abuser. But
Yeah.
that to me, letting go of my friends and my intimate friends that I stopped
Mhm.
hanging with, not calling them, um, not spending time with them, or even cutting off family members
Yeah.
and pulling away from them as well. I think that would be the biggest thing. I think that I regret. I lost so
Mhm.
many years from cutting them off. I
Yeah.
lost
Yeah.
time with them. I lost experiences with them.
Mhm.
And so that was my biggest regret.
I think that if I had to do it all over again, what I would do is the very first time something happened that made the hairs on my neck stand up,
Yeah.
where they say something that's nice, nasty, or something that is causes you to second guess yourself. I think the very first time that it happened, I would say, hey, that's not okay. And the second time it happened, if it should happen the second time, I'm out. And just cut it off at the knees. I think where I made a mistake, and I think where a lot of women make a mistake, is that you make excuses for the
Yes.
person's bad behavior, and you think, well, he's just rough. That's just how he grew up. That's how his family talks to him. That's how he is. When
Yes.
if it doesn't feel good to your soul, love doesn't feel like that. Like
No.
real
And
love
you get,
doesn't feel like that. It doesn't
it's like
hurt you.
you get that
Yeah.
uh-oh feeling. You get that uh-oh feeling, you ignore it, you know?
I
And
remember
and
when,
and
yeah.
like I told you, I felt like I was in a bipolar relationship because I was like,
Yeah.
it was like up and down. And I was steady, hoping and wishing and
Mm-hmm.
thinking, oh, that good person gonna stay.
Mm-mm.
That's really who he is. I just made a mistake. I did something wrong.
Mm-mm.
And he gonna be
Mm-mm.
good. If I do things perfect, he gonna be good all the time. He gonna be this loving person all the time. But that wasn't the case.
And that person that you see in the beginning never returns. It's like that's how they
No.
get you.
Uh-huh.
And then you keep
Uh-huh.
waiting through all these ebbs and flows. You keep waiting for that nice guy, the sweet guy, the caring guy, the romantic guy, the passionate guy to show up again. He's
Yeah.
gone. That's not who he was.
No.
Who he's showing you right now while he's hurting you, that's who
That's
he
who
really is. And the
that's
other
who
thing
he
that
is.
you that I thought was interesting is you talked about how charismatic he was. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's so interesting that a lot of times these abusers, and for the record, we all know it can be men or women, so it's not
Men or
just men
women.
abusing women, women abuse men. So I want to make sure that I
Yes.
say, um,
Yes.
but in our situations, and we were talking about men, and
Yes.
it's interesting because in all of the people that I run across who've actually been abusive, they all were the life of the party.
Yes.
Everybody loved them. Everybody, thought they were the bees knees. They were good looking. They were
Yes.
funny, and behind closed doors, they were monsters.
Yes.
So I
And you're
think
like,
that's
girl, who gonna
interesting.
believe me? I'm the quiet person out of the couple, in a couple situation. That's the
Yeah.
outgoing person, that's the
Hmm.
charming person. I'm a little
Right.
church mouse. And
Hmm.
who's gonna believe me over their reputation of being such an amazing person?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Right. And that makes it harder
Yes.
because there's not an ear. You're isolated, you're
Hmm.
embarrassed, and then
Hmm.
everybody loves this person, and you're like looking like, if only you knew.
Yes.
If only you knew. Um, so, what tips would you give someone who has successfully removed themselves from a domestic violence situation?
I'll go through my tips, and they're in no particular order. And the
Okay.
the first one for me is daily practicing self love.
Hmm.
Um, it was so hard for me. I remember I read this beautiful book by Louise Hay, Say You Can Heal Your Life. That was eye
Okay.
opening for me.
Okay.
And she said to do this thing called mirror work. Go to the mirror and tell yourself you love you.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds so crazy. I went to the mirror, Bell, and I couldn't tell myself I love me. I kept standing there and looking and
Hmm.
looking. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh God, that's hard. And so it took me a minute to say it. I looked in my eyes and I just felt like I didn't see anything worth loving. I felt like
Hmm.
I didn't care about myself. I mean, I was so far from who I thought I would be at that age in my life. And so self love, daily practicing it is very important to me. I mean, I literally put it on my calendar. I
Yeah.
have doing prayer meditation,
Hmm.
um, going before a pandemic, going to the movie by myself,
Hmm.
going to the beach. It just soothes me. That is my part of my self love for myself. Going to get a pedicure,
Yeah.
going to get a manicure, going to get a massage, just just getting up, taking a nice shower, going
Yeah.
into my den and watch Netflix marathon all day long.
Yep.
And I'll take a day off for that
Yeah.
because that's what I want to do.
Exactly.
And so self love may look different for each person, what they want to do. But once you find out what you enjoy to do for yourself, what kind of
Hmm.
pampering you want to do, even if you don't have the money and you just want to paint your own nails or write yourself a love letter,
Yeah.
remind yourself how beautiful you are, all you've been through. All the beautiful accolades and adjectives that your friends tell you about yourself. Remind yourself of that. I go in the mirror and I say, and it's not being arrogant, it's just loving myself. I'll tell myself, girl, you looking good today. You look good today, girl. You
Yes,
did it
yes,
today.
yes, yes, yeah,
I love you. I
yeah.
love you, flaws and all.
Hmm.
The rolls, the gray hairs, the wrinkles coming. I still love you, DL.
Yeah,
I still love you. So
yeah.
self love is very important to me, and that's something I practice daily.
Hmm.
Another one of my things is rebuilding and establishing new relationships. Because when I first got out of that violent relationship, I had to call some friends.
Hmm.
I was like, "Hey, can we get together?" They're like, "Girl, where you been? Could nobody get you? Nobody could get in contact with you. You weren't returning calls. You weren't going." I said, "Yeah, I know, but please come out with me now. I need to
Yeah.
reconnect." And I knew I was wrong, girl. I'm sorry, but I got to tell you some things. So when we got together, I told them.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
I remember the first girlfriend I told, I was embarrassed at first. I said, "Girl, I was
Yeah.
being abused," and I was
Hmm.
scared. And she
Yeah.
said, "Girl, I see you sometimes. You look like an old lady. You look like you ain't cared
Hmm.
about nothing." I said, "I was scared. I
Yeah.
was I was abused." And when I told my family, I
Hmm.
told them, they were like, "Huh? All that was
Yeah.
going on?" And you got to be careful with some family members because you don't want to get them in trouble.
Right.
So, some of my male family members I told, my
Hmm.
uncles, and I finally told them, and they were like, "Baby, we didn't know you were going through that. We would have made our way to you." And I was just like, I wasn't there. I
Hmm.
wasn't there. And if you would have came, I probably would have ran in the other direction. But I'm
Hmm.
I'm here now, and I
Yeah.
need you guys now.
Yeah.
And so reestablishing those relationships were very vital to me,
Hmm.
and creating new ones, joining support groups for domestic survivors, being a part of those types of resources in the community, and seeing
Yeah.
how you're not alone. You're not the only one. And when you sit in those types of environments, you hear other people with the same stories because that person had fed you for so long that you were
Hmm.
nothing or that you were worthless. And here you are, you're looking at all these women around you or people around you, you're saying they're beautiful. But
Yeah.
they're saying the same thing about you, baby. They
Hmm.
say, you're like, "Oh my God, she believed that." Somebody
Yeah.
said that about you too. And
Yeah.
so that was very important to me. Reestablishing those relationships, building new relationships.
Hmm.
Another thing that was important to me was seeking guidance from a professional.
Yeah.
I believe in utilizing the professional arena, counselors, psychiatrists, therapists, whatever you need.
Hmm.
Sometimes in our culture, as African American people, at least in my experience, it's not always encouraged or supported.
Hmm.
But if you need to, to me, the best way to really go through that process is also
Hmm.
with a professional,
Yes.
to find out some of the triggers, to find out what make you do what you do, how you tick, and why did you make some of those decisions, to make sure you don't go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you're not careful, you'll run into the same type of person and you'll be right back where you were.
Yeah.
So really, to do that, to overcome it and to get that professional help is vital. And there's so
Hmm.
many programs out there that provide those services free of charge. So to me, creating a professional resource is very important. And I actually interviewed my counselors. I
Hmm.
went to a few of them to make sure they fit and they were the
Right.
person that I needed, because you got a lot of people out there. So I actually called about 4 or 5 counselors. I sat and chatted with them, and I picked the one that was best for me. A friend might refer you to somebody, but that might not be a good fit. And to me, a counselor, you have to be comfortable to tell your truth. I don't go to counseling just to sit there. I go to get help and
Hmm.
resolve things. So if that's what you're going for, you need to make sure you go to somebody that is a good fit for you. And so for me, I found one. I wanted a counselor that had a faith-based tone to it, and that was important to me. So I found one that was key for my healing,
Hmm.
having that faith-based counselor. Also, doing another one of my tips is finding your voice. Everybody do not have to tell everybody they're a survivor of domestic violence. You have to do what's best for you.
Right.
For me, once I started saying it, I was singing it. I just wanted to help everybody. And I even said it to some people. I was shocked when they were like,
Yeah.
"Me too." And I was like, "Huh? You?"
Hmm.
So it allowed them to have a voice as well. And finding my voice, just being able to say I know, being able to say that I'm strong, and forgiving myself. That was key when I found my voice. I had to forgive that younger version of me. I had to
Mhm.
say, you know what? She was doing the best she could. And because of her, I'm here right now.
Right.
Because of her. I don't know if it ever could have escalated to the point that my life was threatened. I didn't get to that part. But what I
Mhm.
can say is she did whatever she had to do to survive. And I forgave that version of myself. And I was grateful that all of those things I went through made me the woman that I am now.
Yes.
So that was very important to me. And my fifth tip was finding those local resources, knowing all of the different nonprofits and community resources are key, because if
Mhm.
you do not choose to share with your family what you're going through, that's your choice. But some of these centers have great resources, the support groups. They have 24-hour crisis line. And for me, when as Belle talked about earlier, planning your exit, he went to work,
Mhm.
he came back, I was gone. I was
Hey,
gone.
hey.
It was planned, so it was strategically planned so well. I mean, I mean, I had so many people in that house helping me pack up
Yeah.
my. I left him half of everything. I took
Mhm.
my half and I was gone. I mean, we were packing boxes. We had the boxes planned. I had my apartment ready. I had resources already available. I had already applied for assistance with getting food stamps because I did not have an adequate job at the time. I had found me a place that would go by my income. I
Mhm.
went to a local housing authority. I was so wrapped around. I had such a huge support system. Once I
Yeah.
reached out to the local nonprofits, I mean, it was just all of this support came out. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know all of this was out there. And so having my own place with my own key, when you feel like you can't support yourself, when you feel like this person is your everything,
Yeah.
and then walking into a door and it's your key, and you know you're safe, you have your own resources. And it was just amazing to me how everybody came together and got me out of that house. And
Mhm.
I was in my own place, and I just sat there. And I think when I first got my own place, I was just so overwhelmed and I was
Mhm.
so full of emotions, because I remember feeling like this was not possible.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that I had no hope. I
Mhm.
remember feeling like there was nobody that would support me or help me. And then to be standing in my own place, didn't have much, but then I had all of this help, all of these
Yeah.
people that were surrounding me with love and
Yes.
support. It was just amazing to me.
Yeah.
It, it,
Yeah.
it was it was one of the most profound moments for me in my life,
Yeah.
when I got that key and I moved into my own place.
Yeah. It's so funny when you say when we realize that enough is enough. I can remember when I decided to leave, and I left in the middle of a snowstorm. Normally, it would take 2 hours to get from where I was to New York, and it took 8. I left in the middle of a snowstorm with just
Wow.
my little. I had 3 little ones, three babies, and whatever I could fit in my truck. And I was out. I had it. I called my girlfriend in Virginia, and I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go. I can't stay. She's like, come on. You can stop here and rest on your way back to Georgia, honey. And that's what I did. So, when you have had enough,
Yes.
you know it, and you
Yes.
move accordingly. So I have some tips. My first one would be to trust your intuition. I
Yes.
think that a lot of times, that God gives us things, right? So some people call it the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. Some people say it's vibes, it's energy, whatever that thing is, you should listen to it. And it'll
Yes.
warn you, it'll tell you danger, red
Yes.
flags. This is not the person that you should be attaching yourself to. But oftentimes we push that down because we love them. We want to give
Yes.
them a chance. We feel like we know better than God.
Yes.
And then you get what you get. So I would say learn to tap into that small voice, and trust it. because that's God's way of telling you what direction you should be moving in.
Yes.
The second tip I have is don't make excuses for someone else's bad behavior. Their
Wow,
bad
that's a good one.
behavior, their
That's a good
bad
one.
behavior is their problem, not yours.
Yes.
Oftentimes, I can remember saying, "Oh, their childhood was messed up," or "Their dad wasn't there, their mom wasn't there, or they just lost their job, or they're stressed at work. That's why he went off on me." No, baby. I don't make excuses for someone else's bad behavior. Make them take responsibility and accountability for how they're treating you. And then you need to step up and take responsibility for what you allow within your relationship. Uh, Another tip that I have is don't blame yourself. I would blame myself. I wasn't this, I wasn't that, I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right. I should have waited until he rested. I shouldn't have brought this up during the football game. I shouldn't have gone to see my girls. I had all this weight, that I was carrying, and I'm blaming myself for someone else abusing me.
Yes,
Nonsensical,
it is.
nonsensical. And I like what you said about forgiving yourself, because you have to forgive yourself for what you didn't know. You
Yeah.
didn't know what you didn't know until you
Didn't
realize that
know.
you didn't know it. You have to
Didn't
forgive
know.
yourself. So the next thing I would want to say is tell somebody.
Yes.
I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to share what was going on in my house. I didn't want to tell anybody. So I put on a smile. I put on my makeup. I put on my shoes and my bag and whatever. And I didn't want to share with my closest friends what was really happening behind closed doors. Partly because I knew they would not judge me, but I feel like they would encourage me to get out of it. And I wasn't
Yes.
quite ready to leave, right?
Yes.
I wasn't quite ready
Hmm.
to leave. I didn't want to share it because I was embarrassed. I thought I had maybe an image to uphold, and I didn't.
No.
But when I started talking, shackles fell off.
Yes.
Shackles fell off, and I felt so free. And I would just encourage anybody that's in a situation, tell a trusted friend, confide in someone. Do not hold that in all by yourself. You can carry it. Your friends will help you carry that, but you have to be proactive, and you have to get a plan in place so that you
Yes.
can get out of it.
Yes.
But please don't hold it all to yourself. Share it with somebody. And lastly, my saving grace: seek professional help. I
Yes.
believe in therapy. I believe in
Me
counseling.
too.
And when when I was trying to figure out what I needed to do, I found an amazing therapist. I had gone through so many who it wasn't a good fit. Maybe it was a cultural thing, maybe it was a faith thing. I kind of feel like you need the educational piece and the faith piece. And so I
Yes.
found someone who had both, and he
Hmm.
was amazing. He helped me walk through the steps that I needed to go through to get myself out of that situation. And once I did, I didn't look back. And I still am looking for a therapist that's similar to this person that I saw to help me get through my situations. And I would just encourage anybody, please, please, please seek counseling, seek help, keep looking until you find the right fit for you, and do the work.
Do
the
the work.
therapist is there the therapist is there to help you, and if you'll listen and if you're honest and open when you go to these counseling sessions, I can guarantee you, it will help you. It will bless your life. It will change your life. You'll look back in 6 months and be like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? Okay, so the National Domestic Violence Hotline, we wanted to share that information with you. 1-800-799-SAFE, or you can go to the hotline.org for help. Did you have anything you wanted to add, DL?
Well, one of the things I want to say is in some situations, and now with technology, so many of the, if a person is still in a domestic violent relationship, That person usually pays your phone bill, possibly, and have
Mhm.
access to your text messages and your phone use. So sometimes it's good to go through different apps to make those connections, so they won't see that. But if,
Yeah.
of course, if you're in immediate danger, dial 911 and get out. But if
Mhm.
you're trying to plan your exit and build that rapport with a local domestic violence center, sometimes you can go through their Facebook page, or you can communicate through a family member or friend to help plan your exit, a safe exit. So just I know sometimes you're not thinking that far ahead. So if you have a person that's that controlling, that's looking
Mhm.
at your phone bill, that looks at your text messages, so just be strategic and figure out how can you talk to those people, whether it be through a family member helping you communicate and execute that plan, or whether it is through a Facebook page connecting to that agency. Just do whatever you have to do to survive and to get help. Do whatever you got to do, survive and get help.
One of the things that I think we forget also is that when children are involved,
Yes,
is that they're watching.
yes,
And that was another reason that I kind of moved in the direction that I decided to move in, is because I realized, hey, your kids are watching you. You know, they're learning how to treat women by this
yeah.
relationship, you know, and it would bring tears to my eyes. You know, I would think, my God, you know, what am I teaching them? You
I
know,
think
what am I
one of
teaching them?
I get that. One of my moments, my oldest, he saw my partner fighting me and hitting
Hmm.
me, and I think I really noticed the damage I was doing when I begged him to call help because I was in a corner, and he was punching me, and
Hmm.
he stood puzzled, and he stood there and he wouldn't move, and it blew my mind because I was so, at that point I was really terrified that he would go too far and either kill me. I didn't know at that point. I was
Yeah.
just that scared. And after it was over, and as he got older, he said he didn't, he was scared about the person going to jail, and he didn't know
Hmm.
what to do. And I said I shouldn't have put him in that situation.
Hmm.
But at that point I had no phone. He was my only person to call to. And that was one of my defining moments that I had to get out of it. When you have your children there seeing that,
Hmm.
or even if you're trying to call to your kids for help because you're not near a phone and there's nobody there but them, we don't realize how traumatizing that is for a
Yeah.
child. And I personally made sure that my son had counseling as well. It's
That's
very
true.
important that the children receive counseling as well, because they need to talk about what they saw and what they
Yeah.
went through and their feelings as well, so that we don't create those scenarios in their life, and when they grow up they find partners or put themselves in situations where they become abusers.
Yeah.
So it's very important that not only the adults are taken care of, but that we remember the children who are watching this and experiencing these sorts of violent interactions and situations.
Yeah. And, you know, it's important to also within your home, counseling is wonderful. I definitely advocate for that, but it's also important to create within your home a safe space for your children to communicate their
Yes,
feelings to you,
yes,
and you not be defensive, you not
yes,
be argumentative, you not be dismissive, but to really listen to what it is your children are telling you that they're feeling. Um, and you know, you may be embarrassed or you may feel like, oh my God, what have I done here? But you have to allow them that space within your home, a safe place, you know, for them
yes,
to speak to mom or for them to speak to dad and say, hey, when I saw this, it, it made me feel this. You know, sometimes you'll see symptoms in children like bedwetting, you know, they're
yes,
acting out at schools, they're hitting little girls or hitting little boys,
that's true.
they're violent with siblings. And so, as
That's true.
parents, you really have to pay attention to your children because they're telling you and they're absorbing all that negative energy, they're absorbing it too, you know? And so,
I think another interesting thing about it is,
yeah.
as your children get older and you have
Hmm.
even um, those kind of conversations, I think my son is 23 now, and we
Yeah.
had an interesting conversation. You know, he just was like, "Why did you stay?"
Hmm.
And at first, I was almost like, "Did you really just ask me that?"
He did.
You know, and he did. And
He
I was
did.
like, I didn't know no better. I
Yeah.
didn't love myself the way I needed to, and I didn't care about myself. And I definitely didn't understand the impact it would have on your
Hmm.
life. And so I apologized to him. And I
Hmm.
told him, I said, please forgive me. I said I was doing the best I could and I didn't know no better. I
Yeah.
said, but I know better now. And so that was interesting because the dialogue we had after the situation, him going
Hmm.
through therapy was different. And as he got older and he finds his voice,
Hmm.
he asked me that. You know, he was
Hmm.
just like, why did you stay, mom?
Yeah.
Why did you
That's a
stay?
fair
Why did you
question.
accept that? And
Hmm.
it was we had such an interesting conversation, and it made us closer, and he
Hmm.
understood me better, and it gave me an opportunity to even address things that maybe he didn't get to address as a child, or
Yeah.
him understanding why he did certain things, and us connecting it to that, to those moments and to that situation. So it actually made us closer.
Yeah.
And but at first I was like, ooh. So
Yeah, that was a
it's
no-no for me growing up. There was no
yeah,
questioning
I mean, think
anything.
about
I
where
knew it
we
just
came
didn't happen.
from. You know,
Yeah.
we were not allowed to say things and ask those
Right.
types of questions. So when you say making an environment safe for our
Hmm.
kids to have their voice or be able to articulate what they're feeling and
Yeah.
to say it, and it's key. It's key
Hmm.
because some of us we didn't grow up like that, and if we're not careful, we'll mimic that situation again where our children are not allowed to say things they need to say and ask the questions they need to ask. So
Yeah.
it was eye-opening for me to have that conversation because it didn't stop with that one question. So he started asking more questions, but it was pertaining to the violence. It was pertaining to the
Right.
relationship and understanding where I was in my life.
Hmm.
So it opened up a flood, a long conversation, but it was needed. It was needed.
What do you think it was about DL that made her susceptible to this kind of relationship? Like, how do you think you fell into that?
I think, and you read in my bio, I was molested as a child.
Hmm.
And one of the things I did say too was that my father wasn't there. And being molested over years as a child, it created something in my head of me. I used to call myself a dirty girl, and I
Hmm.
thought I wasn't good enough. And so when this person came along and just this overwhelming amount of love and
Hmm.
acceptance, and I just was like, wow, somebody's loving me, somebody's accepting me. And I think that was part of the hold. It's like I think they can see that brokenness in you. They can see
Hmm.
that that missing element of self worth,
Hmm.
of confidence, self esteem. They could see that missing that hole there, and then they come to mimic that they're going to fill it. And I
Hmm.
think as young, especially from a female point of view,
Hmm.
I tell people all the time, men sometimes are taught to look for the one of many before they get to the one and only. And then a woman is taught to look for the one and only. So we're constantly looking for that Prince Charming, that person to come and save us.
Right.
Not knowing that we have the ability to do it ourselves, not knowing we have our own power and we have the will to do things ourselves, but nobody's sowing that into you.
Hmm.
Nobody telling you you're worthy. And we're not realizing how important it is to tell those things to our children that you're beautiful, you deserve this, you're amazing, you can do anything you put your mind to. So not having that, and I think I was more susceptible to that type of relationship. And that's one of the reasons why it's very important to me, the self love,
Yeah.
and still to this day going periodically to my therapist and making sure I'm taking care of myself, making sure I'm not overwhelming myself, and making sure I have a balance in my life.
Hmm.
Those are things I think is key to continue the healing process, to
Yeah.
continue to be a well person and balance in your life and have balance in your life. I think that's very
Yeah.
important.
Fathers are so important. And, I think what we hear all the time is, dad wasn't there, right? So we
Mhm.
know, that's kind of obvious how that impacts a young girl or a young boy if dad is absent. But sometimes, your father is present. He's present, but he's emotionally unavailable. And
True.
so, that creates a void as
True.
well. And I can say for me, the way in which I grew up, it created a void a need that I had. I didn't even realize I had the need until I was of age to enter into romantic relationships. And so, I meet someone and now, oh, they love me. I'm wonderful. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. They can't live without me. I'm going to marry you, or they propose or whatever. And so I'm thinking, because I didn't hear these things growing up, it
Yeah.
wasn't a norm in my household, growing up. Well, if he's telling me he loves me, he must mean it. My own father doesn't say those things to me. So here's this person that's saying all these things to me. It's got to be true. Now, we all know just because somebody says it, that's definitely not the case. But I think it's so important as parents that you affirm your children. I mean,
Hmm.
parenting is not just provision. It's not just a roof over your head, food on the table, and clothes on your back. There are so many emotional needs that kids have. Um, we have got to pay more attention to that because it leaves them vulnerable to predators. It leaves
Yes.
them vulnerable to abusers. It leaves them vulnerable to influence that's a negative. So I would just implore parents, pay attention to your children. If there are traumatic events that are happening in your lives, pay attention to your children. Talk to your children. Love on your children. Affirm, reaffirm, and affirm again, so
Yes.
that they don't have these voids in their life. So when they're of age, where now they're looking outside because they're not getting it at home, right? Like that's
Yes.
when men
Yes.
cheat. That's what they say. I wasn't getting it at
Yes.
home, so
Yes.
Sally Sue, was available. So there
Uh-huh.
we were. So it's the same thing. I think you're not getting it at home. You never got it home, and so now you're in these romantic relationships, and this person is filling a void, but unbeknownst to you, it's unhealthy.
Yes.
So um, yeah, my father was present, still is present, but he's just of that generation where it's about provision.
Yes.
Clothes on your back, roof over your head, food on the
And it's
table.
it's so
That's
much
it.
more to that. It's so much
Yeah,
more to
yeah.
that being a parent. And then one of the things that I think I had to realize is I had to forgive my mom. I had to
Hmm.
forgive those around me that, did not put that in my life or sow that into me. And it's because they didn't know. A lot of them did not know that they should tell us certain things. And sometimes you're dealing with a parent that dealing with their own unresolved abuse issues,
Right,
unresolved
right,
issues. So you got hurt people trying to heal people. I mean, trying to raise kids.
right,
You know, you got people
right.
that haven't resolved their own issues trying to raise and nurture children. So
Hmm.
it all of that goes hand in hand. Whether the person was physically there or not there,
Hmm.
it plays a part in that child's life. It really
Yeah.
does. Or even if they were there and they were the abuser,
Hmm.
or they were abusive to that person's parent.
Yeah.
All of that is key as well.
And oftentimes with yeah, to piggyback off what you said, a lot of times when you peel back the layers of the abuser, the history is there. They were
Yeah,
abused. They grew up
yeah,
seeing abuse. So it's kind of like on one hand, you're like, oh, what did we really expect? The outcome of that was going to be. And on one hand, you feel sorry for them sometimes. Like, oh, his mom abused him, or his dad abused him, or his dad left, or granny, whatever. They were in the foster care system, or whatever these
mhm,
things are that happen to people. And you peel it back, and you're right, hurt people hurt people. And I would say to a man or a woman who's dating a hurt person, I would say pull back on the dating part and encourage them to get help.
get help.
Let them fix themselves. Don't you try to
Yeah,
fix them because you can't. You'll burn yourself out and then they're on to the next victim.
yeah.
So let them do the work. Let them show you that they want to be well for themselves so that they can be well for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think so often, Belle, people think that they're looking for somebody to complete them. It should be
Hmm.
a compliment. It should be that
Hmm.
you already know who you are and you love
Yeah.
yourself enough and you respect yourself enough to get the life you deserve. So it's not looking for no completion. I think as a kid, that was how I thought. I know you can compliment me,
Yeah.
but no, 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 you can't complete nothing right over here. You need to be all right with yourself because I can't
Right.
make you happy. You got to understand and resolve your own situations so you can make yourself happy. Because if I become your everything or you my everything, we're not going to have a good relationship. It's going to be
Right.
unhealthy. And so
Right.
a lot of times as kids, when we watch those things on TV or movies, all these
Mm-hmm.
fantasies of what love is like, or even seeing stuff on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see somebody on Facebook 2 months ago was in love and married, and then a month later they getting a divorce. You be like, well, what happened? Life
Yeah.
happens. So you can't, I don't want anybody to be ashamed of whatever you're going through, to not reach out for help. Don't be ashamed. We done been there. Don't be
Yeah.
ashamed. Just I don't care if you're a professional woman. I don't care if you whatever title you have. Don't be ashamed to speak out and give help. Get help. They'll help you no matter what. Get help. It's a lot of support out there in the community for domestic victim of domestic violence. It's a lot of
Yeah.
support and people that would wrap around you and encourage you and help you plan a safe exit.
And
Get help.
domestic violence does not discriminate.
No,
it,
it
it,
don't.
it all races, all colors, all socioeconomic statuses, education, a whole lot or none.
All different
It
types of
happens to
relationships,
everyone. Yep.
all different types of relationships. Everybody. You got elderly. You got um, just all types of relationships you can think of that have experienced domestic violence. Even people that have been with people for years that have been
Hmm.
quiet.
Hmm.
So it's going on. And some people that it became the culture or it's natural of their house. They saw their mother abused, and she's
Hmm.
still in an abusive relationship, and you still, you tend to find somebody similar to what you saw in the house, that culture. So you think
Yeah.
that's acceptable. Well, you can break the culture and you can go back and try to help mom or dad if they're in an abusive relationship and let them know they can get help as well.
Yeah.
So,
I heard a therapist call it trauma. That's your trauma buddy. You share traumas, and that's the
hmm
attraction. And
hmm
so you just want to be careful about what you're attracting and pay attention. Go in with your eyes wide open. If you see red flags, address them. If they don't go away, get out. If you find yourself in a physically violent situation, get a safety plan in place before you exit because there's a high risk of
high
increased
risk.
violence if you when you try to leave in those first 2 years. So it is a real thing. Let's look at some comments over here. Stephanie Fletcher says, if someone raises their voice, they will raise their hand. Yeah, I agree with you, Stephanie. What do you think, DL?
Yes, that's what we're trying to tell you, to be strategic in how you do it, because we don't
Hmm.
want something we said, call the professionals, get help. My situation, Belle's situation, everybody's situation is unique. Sometimes for me, I could not tell that person face to face I was leaving. I had to exit while they were going to work. And if I left anything behind, oh well, it was left
Yeah.
behind. It just wasn't meant for me to have it, because I just had to get out. So you have to make sure you do it in a manner that's safe for you. I mean, I've heard of people planning their exits and meeting the support team at a grocery store, meeting family members, or they the partner thought they were going to a store or going somewhere and they just didn't come back because they were slowly planning their exit. So whatever works best for you, we want to make sure you're safe. We're not telling you to do anything that's going to cause somebody to harm you tonight, but to make sure you reach out for help and plan that safe exit well.
What's next for DL Williams?
Excuse me.
What's next for DL Williams? Do you have any projects coming up? Anything
I'm
exciting?
I'm working on a healthy eating lifestyle supports group, and I'm working on my a book loosely based on my story.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I hope to have that completed by spring of next year.
Okay.
And I'm very transparent in it. My husband thinks, "Who you gonna tell all that?" Yes, I'm gonna tell all that. I'm gonna tell it all. Um, I'm just one of those people, and everybody's different. It's very important for me to be truthful. It's very important for me to tell my truth. I just feel like there's so many broken people out there that
Hmm.
are putting on that mask that they're fine, they're okay. And I feel like some of our scars is part of our beauty. I mean, I have more empathy and sympathy for a domestic violent person because of what I've been through, my sexual abuse and what I've been through, and it's just part of who I am. It's just it's a part of me that don't define me, but it's a part of me that I have grown to have strength from everything I've been through. I have developed a much been I became a much stronger person through getting those resources and finding my voice. So it's just who DL is, and I'm okay with that. But I want to encourage and support others. I want to help them on their journey, and that's one of the things that excite me is to see people when you meet them and when they reach a goal and when they find their voice and when they do these amazing things they thought they would never do. And that excites me. So I want to be a part of that process and journey for others. So that's what's going on with me.
Again, I have to tell you, I'm so proud of you. I've been watching you and your evolution as a woman, as a leader, as a wife, as a mother. It's just it has been phenomenal to watch, and you have been an inspiration. Where can we find you on social media?
I have a Facebook page, DL Williams Serves. It's the same title and handle for my Instagram. And I have a website, um, dlwilliams.com. And you can info at dlwilliams.com is my email address. And if you go to my Facebook page, it'll give you my phone number and how to reach out to me. Just call me.
Yeah. Let's see. Tina Sutton says the most amazing point to me was you need to be told and learn the signs. I let my 16-year-old watch a portion that we could discuss signs such as someone making you isolate. Thank you. You are welcome. Tracy Springfield Dawson says, great discussion. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Stephanie says, thank you. Great conversation and information. Patsy says, amen. Tashana Gibson says, so true. This is awesome. Thank you guys for all of
Awesome.
your support. Please find DL Williams on social media. You can find me at Belle Morgan Official on Facebook and Instagram. Our website is bellemorgan.com. This is a series, like I said, at the top of the hour. So we'll be talking about things. Most of you know me from Push Radio, but these are things that are important to me, near and dear to my heart, and things that I wanted to lift up and talk about because I felt like we needed to be having these conversations. And
We
so
do.
I am a purveyor, a believer in, create what you want to see. If you don't see other platforms talking about the things that you want to talk about, then you start your own platform and you do it. And so that's what we're doing here with
True.
Conversations with Belle. So thank you all for spending this past hour. Do you have any parting words, CL?
No, just discover your beauty within your
Yeah.
flaws. You are amazing. Each person. I mean, I'm so honored to be here with Belle, and I've watched her over the years as well. And
Yeah.
uplift one another,
Yeah.
encourage, tell you can admire somebody's beauty without questioning your own. I love that saying. I'm not sure who said it first, but it is amazing to me when I see
Yeah.
another person growing, thriving, and finding their voice. So I have been admiring you as well over the years,
Oh,
Belle, and
thank
I love
you.
you.
I
I
love
love
you
you. And
too,
thank you
honey.
for
Thank you so
allowing me this
much.
opportunity to have this great
Thank
conversation,
you.
meaningful conversation with you this
Yes,
evening.
it's important. And
Thank
we'll be
you.
having some more conversations, I'm sure. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And as always, please be encouraged. Have a great day.
Bye bye.